Today we're going to be talking about reading decimals and place values with decimals. Last week we spent a lot of time talking about whole numbers. We had 4 families. We would say never, touch, moldy, bread, and we'd have the no names, thousands, millions, and billions. And these were our whole number families. This week we're going to start talking about the decimal family, which is everything smaller than 1. And if you haven't done it already, then later today you're going to do a rap that's called the place value rap. And my favorite part of it goes, let's take it to the right of the decimal point. We've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And then it goes smaller than a 1 with the TH, because everything that ends with a TH is a decimal number that has a value less than 1. As we go to the left of the place value chart, our numbers are getting bigger. You guys know that billions are bigger than millions, which are bigger than thousands. And so the same thing's happening here. As we go to the right of the decimal place, everything's getting smaller. So it's important that you know that a tenth is actually bigger than a hundredth. Think about if you have a tenth, then you're sharing a Hershey bar with 10 people. But if you have a hundredth, you're sharing a Hershey bar with 100 people, and you're not getting a whole lot to eat. So our numbers to the right of the decimal point are getting smaller and smaller as we go. So how do you read a decimal number? When you read a decimal, you're going to first read the whole numbers to the left of the decimal point, just like you read any other whole number. Then you're going to say the word "and" for the decimal point. That tells us we're going to something smaller than 1. Then you read the number in the decimal family. When you finish reading the number, say the place value of the last digit in the number. So for example, I would read this number, the whole number first, and I read that like any other whole number, 2,164, and then I look at this whole number, and that says 511. So I'm going to read that as 511 thousandths, because the last digit, and remember again, let's take it to the right of the decimal point. We've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So this last digit is in the thousandths place. So I have 2,164 and 511 thousandths. Okay, these are some examples that we can practice. If I'm reading this one, I remember to say, let's take it to the right of the decimal point. We've got tenths, hundredths. So I'd read this as 7 and 56 hundredths. Okay. This one I'd say 512 and 8 tenths. It's important that you always label the place values of the decimals, because otherwise we make silly mistakes and forget. Okay? Let's try reading some of these. This is 153 and 16 hundredths. Anytime you see the word "and" when you're reading a number in word form, circle it, because that's where your decimal point is going to go. So we have 153. You write that out like any other number. And 16 hundredths. Make sure you end in the right place value. So we've got, let's take it to the right of the decimal point. We've got tenths, hundredths, and we don't need the thousandths, because we need to have 16 hundredths, and it ends in the hundredths place there. Be careful when you get to numbers like this one. This says 3 and 79 thousandths. So we know the whole number is 3, and then we have the decimal point. 79 thousandths. To get to the thousandths place, we'd have to take it to the right of the decimal point. We've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and I'm going to label them. And I need to make sure that the number 79 ends in the thousandths place. So I'm going to write that here, and I have to hold the tenths place with a 0. Okay, those are some examples. You can also put zeros after the decimal point. Okay? Writing extra or ghostly zeros after the decimal point does not change the value of the number. So the decimals 2 tenths are the same as 20 hundredths. There's our hundredths place, which is the same as 200 thousandths. And that sounds kind of confusing, so let's look at it together. If you look at this picture, you can see that this Hershey bar, and I love to talk about chocolate, so we're going to call it a Hershey bar. This one's broken into 100 pieces, so you're sharing with 100 different people. So you only get a small little piece. This one you're sharing with 10 people, and so you get one big piece as a tenth. But 6 tenths is this blue shaded part, is the same as 60 hundredths. So you can see that the pictures are actually the same. It's the same value. It's just a different name. We're going to practice, so if your teacher wants you to get out your dry erase markers to write on your desk, you can. If not, then she'll have you do some other practices. But just pause this when you get to the examples. First, I'd like you to write the decimals for these words. Now I'd like you to write each decimal number in word form. Pause it for a second. And now we're going to put, I want you to tell me the place value of each underlying digit. There's 4 examples there. And that is how we read decimal numbers. I hope you had fun.